Coming up on Capitol Crossfire, 4 panelists join us to discuss the latest developments in U.S. foreign intervention, immigration policy, and more. Plus, we hear from students on campus about their predictions for the new year, as well as from Crossfire correspondent Brady Wilson on the latest with the Kennedy Center.
Joining us today for our discussion on the left are Jonah Baynard and Jared Hoffman. Joining us on the right are Gypsy Jang and Ryan Van Slingerland.
I'm Nicola Kumite.
And I'm Mylinda Stewart.
From the GWTV studios here in Washington, D.C.,
this is Capitol Crossfire. I'm Joan. Good to meet you. Thanks, Nicole and Mylinda. Welcome to today's discussion. I'm Joan, and I'll be serving as your moderator. Last week marked 1 year since President Trump was inaugurated and began his second term in office. It's a year that's been marked by radical changes and lots of controversy, from immigration to foreign intervention to cultural battles. But before we talk about some of the latest news from the White House and elsewhere, let's meet our debaters. First, on the left, we have Jonah Baynard. Jonah is a sophomore who plans on studying sociology and American studies. He's a registered Democrat in Maryland, but considers himself to be a leftist most of the time. He serves as Director of Communications on the Executive Board of Bridge GW, a Bridge USA chapter within a multi-partisan nonprofit of 100-plus college chapters promoting civic political dialogue. Also on the left, we have Jared Hoffman, a Democrat and junior political science student here at GW. Moving to the right, we have Gypsy Jang, a sophomore studying international affairs and international business, and the president of Young Americans for Freedom at GW. On the right, we also have Ryan Van Slingerland, a third year studying international affairs and the president of new Foggy Bottom chapter of Turning Point USA. Debaters, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's begin. Danish intelligence classifies the U.S. as a security risk last month. Danish intelligence classified the U.S. as a security risk. This comes after Trump expressed a desire to obtain Greenland, a territory of Denmark. Should the United States have control over Greenland? And should Denmark change its position on the United States? We'll start on the left with you, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, this question is one of great importance for Americans because it brings up a lot of questions about sovereignty and what it means to be a global power. But frankly, the short answer, I think, is no. I think that Greenland is a sovereign territory as well. I mean, it is a part of Denmark, and I think that we should listen to them first, just more broadly. I'd love to hear what all you guys have to say first, and then we'll actually talk a little bit more, but that's my short answer.
We can move down the line to you, Jared.
Right. So I certainly think this is obviously of large importance. A lot of people are talking about this. I do not believe that it's within the United States' strong national interest to have complete control over Greenland, as the president suggests. It's currently controlled by, of course, Denmark, as we know. There are already bases on Greenland of the United States, and they're already allies. I don't think we need to start a war with Denmark just to try and control Greenland for some, political purpose that I don't think is national security related.
Thank you. And Gypsy?
And frankly, if you look at it, as we've seen recently with the recent talks in Davos, Trump is not necessarily looking to obtain Greenland. Instead, he's trying to get our European allies to up their security in the Arctic. Just look at the numbers of icebreakers we have. The Chinese and Russians have tens of large-sized icebreakers that can operate in the Arctic, while our allies in Europe, Denmark especially, they does not have a single large-scale icebreaker, only smaller-scale icebreakers that can only operate in the Baltics. Now in the U.S., we are not doing that great as well on that front. We only have 3 icebreakers that could operate in the Arctic, but the Trump administration has shown itself to have a strong interest in Arctic security, with plans of building up to, I believe, 40 icebreakers, according to one of his statements, I believe, last April. So if you're going to look at it from purely security point of view, the United States needs the European allies to up their security in the Arctic, and if what the administration indicated that America must have control over the Arctic, over Greenland to have security Arctic, so be it. But as we've seen in recent talks in Davos, that does not seem to be the #1 priority of America at this moment.
And Ryan?
Look, the facts here are simple. Ever since World War II, when the Nazis invaded Denmark, Greenland's been under the protection of the United States. We have treaties going as far back as the start of the Cold War, where the U.S. has been defending and has had bases in Greenland and in its territory. And you know what? It's simple to say. The world it's dangerous. We have America as enemies, whether we like it or not. Russia and China are constantly advancing in the creation and expansion of their fleets. They're trying to get into the Arctic. Why shouldn't we be there? Do we want China as a neighbor? Absolutely not. They're our enemy. Why would we want that? So the president's stance on Greenland, taking it, and whether we actually, and it's like the president said recently, you're less likely to defend something that you're leasing rather than you actually own. And unfortunately, our European allies are not as well equipped or willing to defend their land and their territory these days, and it's a sad reality. And so why shouldn't the U.S. Control Greenland? But I think that the president had very productive talks with our European allies in Davos, and while we might not control it, the deal is looking good, and we're going to get what we need out of it because there's critical minerals there. We want that as Americans, like America first.
And if I may, as we've seen recently with the mineral talks between China have a hold over the United States over critical minerals. If the United States truly wants to compete with China globally as a great power competition, America must secure a supply chain, which means critical minerals that's needed in semiconductor and military applications. Greenland, Denmark is not developing Greenlander natural resources, critical minerals especially, and frankly needs American companies, needs American mineral developers to set up shop there to make sure that we have complete mineral security from the Chinese, or they will no longer have this hold over us. And that's frankly critical.
Okay, we've got enough time for a rebuttal from the left side of the aisle, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Right, so I understand that there is definitely, in some way, an interest in the United States to have, some sort of control in Greenland, but still Greenland has always been our allies. I don't really find this all this very useful. And at the end of the day, Americans aren't really looking for more control over Greenland. Americans are looking to solve the affordability crisis that President Trump said he would solve immediately upon getting in office, and yet still many, many Americans are struggling to pay their bills day by day. I don't think this is a huge priority as much as President Trump is making it for Americans.
And if there's time, Ryan, I just want to respond quickly to one thing that you said. You said a couple minutes ago that we don't want China as a neighbor, and that is a very understandable thing. I want to go back to what Trump actually said. He said several times that he doesn't want Russia and China as a neighbor. Now, obviously, that isn't the case because of Alaska. And I think that shows a greater inconsistency with the policy and rhetoric, particularly on this issue. Just yesterday, I believe, it was made clear that, okay, we're not going to use military force, which would effectively destroy NATO, as we would be invading an ally and another effective member state. And so I think that it brings to light the much broader issue of, it isn't very clear what the stance is of the president. It isn't very clear what Stephen Miller wants to do. It isn't very clear what Marco Rubio wants to do. I think this is a broader issue of foreign policy. So I look forward to talking more about that when we talk about other issues here. But that's just something that I want to bring up because,
Okay, thank you very much. Now, U.S. forces conducted Operation Absolute Resolve, which captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, taking them into U.S. custody. Do you think that the United States was justified in the capture? We'll start on the right with Ryan.
Absolutely. I think it's simple. Absolutely. He was a brutal dictator. The Venezuelan people are better off with him gone. And frankly, who are the only people to complain, really, that we did that? China and Russia, because, they lost their ally in the region now. And whether you like it or not, doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, the facts are simple. Maduro is a brutal dictator who is actively sending narco-terrorists into the United States. It's just a simple fact. You can't deny it. So obviously, the president, using the powers given to him by the Constitution, went and we captured Maduro. We didn't assassinate him. We didn't kill him. We went in and we captured him, and now he's been brought back to stand trial in our legal system. I think that's very fair. There's no occupation in Venezuela. There's no mass casualties, none of that. we went in and we captured this dictator, and the world is safer for it now. I think it's as simple as that. So yes, the U.S. is completely justified in doing that.
And we'll move on to Gibson. Go down the line.
I believe this is one of the greatest American military operations ever conducted, at least within the 21st century. I mean, look at it. Very limited casualties. Only 30-odd something communist Cubans died, which, why are they even in Venezuela in the first place? Cuban security services. If you look, and to add what Ryan said, Maduro and his drug-dealing wife are narco-terrorists. They should not be allowed to operate as sovereign leaders in Venezuela or in anywhere in this world. And America, frankly, did the world a favor getting rid of this evil dictator. Now, some might argue, oh, what about international law? I might argue, I would just like to say, what about international law of all the political prisoners he's keeping in prison in Venezuela? What about them? No one's yelling about, no one is making a point that their rights are also important. And frankly, as Ryan said, the only people who seem to be against it are, frankly, communists and leftists in the United States who have no idea what's going on in Venezuela. All my friends who are Venezuelan have been telling me this is one of the greatest things that have happened in the Trump administration in their lifetime. And if you're going to look at it, it's only certain people in the United States who seem to be against it, and these people have the least understanding of the situation on hand and have the least stake in the future of Venezuela. And I think this is definitely one of the greatest American operations ever conducted in Latin America, and I think history will tell how great the conclusions are. But I think the conclusions, looking back, let's say 20, 30 years from now, I think this operation will be a positive operation.
And if I can add to that briefly as well, like, like the fact that you have people on the left who are defending Maduro and demanding that he be released, and like, again, he's a dictator. Like, it's just a simple fact. You can't deny it. The fact that the left is lining up to demand his release, a brutal dictator, like, it's truly sad and frightening. And frankly, if it was anyone else who did it, if it was Joe Biden who did this rather than Donald Trump, they'd be celebrating. So just something to think about.
And we'll move on to Joan and Jared if you have responses.
All right, so first of all, no one, or at least no one on the normal left, is celebrating is trying to defend Maduro and recognizes he is a dictator. Pretty much everyone, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and all of the Democrats that you can possibly think of acknowledge that Maduro is a dictator, just to be clear. And from my perspective, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, of course, that this man is behind bars now and that he is no longer the leader of Venezuela. I would love to see a change in Venezuela, but ultimately I don't know if it's in the best interest of the United States to stay over in Venezuela to try and force a regime change. We saw that with Iraq, and it didn't really end up so well. Even Afghanistan, we were in there for a long time, and now they're controlled by Taliban, which was not necessarily our goal. At the end of the day, I don't really think that it's worth it to stay over time for Maduro. You can definitely make the argument that the arrest of Maduro in and of itself could be good alone, and to that extent, I do defer with some Democrats in that I don't think the arrest of Maduro was a terrible thing, as some people make it out to be. But I'm worried about the future and how long we're going to spend over in Venezuela and what the future is.
Who said, though, that we're right now in Venezuela? Is there an occupation? There's no
define
level.
occupation. I don't think that's the point. I think what is arguably more important is that I'm surprised that none of you guys have even brought this up. The fact that just because Maduro is in prison, all the things that you're talking about, narco-terrorism, is alleged, and you're talking about, forget international law even. As far as the justice system works, it has to be consistent for everyone. I'm not defending this man, but I'm saying that he has to go through the same process that everyone else does in the United States. That's what's so awesome about our justice system. But I think what's arguably more important is that you guys haven't mentioned the fact that they just removed the head of this alleged operation. Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, who has ascended to the same role that Maduro had, is in control of the government. What has changed in Venezuela as of right now? Like, seriously, I don't know.
Is Venezuela still sending narco-terrorists to the United States?
I have no idea.
Well, you said that they weren't before, which is just wrong.
I don't recall saying that. I don't recall saying that.
And also, okay, well, you have one half of the left that's complaining that we're blowing up narco-terrorist boats, which, might I remind you, go check out the Department of War's website. Check any public records. And might I remind you as well, who made it legal to attack and blow up narco boats? your Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer.
Who is my Senate Minority Leader?
Chuck Schumer. He did that in 1986.
That's lovely. I wasn't alive then, and I'm also not a Democrat, so I don't see how that's. I don't see how connecting me to somebody who I didn't vote for and don't particularly support
my
is a
apologies.
relevant part of this conversation.
You might not be a Democrat, but the left generally, he's their leader. Yes.
No.
He's one of their leaders.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
How is that relevant to this conversation?
But that's the point. Being is that you can't deny the facts.
And what are these facts, please?
That there were narco-terrorists. We removed a dictator who was actively attacking the United States.
Okay.
Sure, it might not be conventional warfare, what you think it is, like trench warfare in World War I or II. It's not. But he was actively sending terrorists to the United States.
And who's to say that the current government, which is the same coalition that he has been in, is going to do the exact same thing?
well, if I may,
There's not. What's to say that a bomb isn't going to drop on your head right now? Like what? Like anything could happen. Like Canada could start sending an army of geese to invade us. Like anything could happen.
I mean,
but
I'm sorry,
The
I think-
facts are
Trying to
simple.
raise probably a more realistic point than Canada sending an army. I mean, Canada's actions, you never really know with them, but his case is definitely more realistic.
and
Just
if
for
I
the
may,
sake of time, I'm sorry, we have to move on.
We'll
and
move
go
on.
ahead
Yeah,
and
it's all
have a
good.
lovely
It's all good.
discussion.
No geese, unfortunately.
The Iranian people have been staging enormous protests against their government in the last several weeks, with the Trump administration officials suggesting potential U.S. intervention in the struggle. What is the United States' role in the crisis? We'll start with the left this time.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think as of now, these protests have largely been quelled with violence. I think that, I don't know a ton about this crisis in particular, but what I do know is that it shows some weakness in the Iranian regime, and it's deeply concerning that the repression that's been going on, it's generally, I'm not a huge fan of that. I would hope you guys are too. But I think what's more important is Trump's grandstanding, saying that he is going to go in there, and not go in there, and just bomb if they start killing protesters, and then I don't want to, bring up the phrase, taco, whatever, but that didn't happen, and protesters were killed. So I think, again, it goes back to the more broader point of the inconsistency of, foreign policy for this administration. It's concerning that we have all these claims, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I want to be able to support, peaceful protesters, but at the end of the day, it's very difficult to actually ascertain what him and his administration actually want to do. So that's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, so I'm also not really sure what exactly Trump is looking to do with this. I don't know if he's looking to actually go into Iran, whether that's sending money there, doing some sort of mission there like he did in Venezuela, sending troops or whatever. But I do know that I support Iranian protesters at the end of the day, and it also shows that at the end of the day, democracy, where you're allowed to peacefully protest, and where we have leaders elected democratically, ultimately rules over autocracies where you try and forcefully stop opposition. That, at the end of the day, just doesn't work, and we're seeing that in Iran. And I think all democracies, and I'm glad that this is pretty much a bipartisan thing that everyone seems to support the Iranian protesters, but I think all democracies do need to support this. I don't know too much on the issue. I'm curious what Trump's position will be ultimately in the future on how exactly we should be supporting the protesters.
And I have to say, I don't believe anyone in their right mind should support Iranian regime. It's a brutal dictatorship, and anyone who is out there protesting for Iranian regime are, frankly, in my opinion, just frankly not just evil people. Now, what has Trump did to support Iranian people? He has made it clear to the Iranian government, if you keep killing protesters, we will do something about it. Now that we do not know the fact of the case, how many protesters are killed. We do not know the details. It is way too early to tell. And or the impact of Trump's statement to the Ayatollah regime and the impact that it had. So at this current moment, I feel like it's just important to say the American people stands with the Iranian people against this brutal dictatorship. And we were still waiting for information to get out of that country after the internet blackout and all of the, of course, the suppression that's going on there. Leave it to Ryan.
Yeah, Iran is clearly no friend of the United States, and I'm all for the protests that are happening there now, and I hope that that they're successful and that the Ayatollah is removed from power by the will of the people. So.
I'm going to say, is there any sort of rebuttal? It seems as though we might be in agreement.
If it's all right, I want to go back a little bit to prior claims made. I think I'm noticing a little bit of a trend here. And I really want to respond to this what I understand as a straw man, particularly regarding the geese and the bomb on my head. I mean, I think that when it comes to party politics, I don't view my elected officials as like representations of my views necessarily. I trust them to do what I want, hopefully, but I don't see them I think really in the same way that from my understanding, a lot of the MAGA base sees Trump in a different manner. So I just want to enumerate that. I want to make that very clear in that regard. But I think in this issue, I'm glad we all agree. But I just want to make that very clear.
Then if we don't have any more, then I think we're ready to move on to the next question. There will be more to come from our panel later on. But for now, let's take a quick break and turn to our reporting on students' predictions for the new year.
Hi, I'm Ava Hidalgo here with GWTV, and we're asking GW students what's on their 2026 bingo card for the news. Let's take a listen. I'm here with
Gianna.
What's on your 2026 bingo card for the news?
It would be amazing if Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo did a collab. I feel like the world would heal.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's going to be probably a realization that something's got to change in terms of maybe mental health. I think a lot of people are, with everything that's going on, things are just advancing, technology and whatever, so probably more like a realization that it's time to reclaim our mental health, and especially with the rise of social media and I guess depression and anxiety. I think probably that.
On your 2026 bingo card?
Let's see. I feel like we're gonna get less AI and everything as we kind of get into the year.
Harry Styles' next album is gonna be bad.
I think more people are going to be rocking a bold lip.
I think we're going to have an insanely hot summer.
I think there's been a spark of joy lately in people's lives because of heated rivalry. Not to be that person, but if this does make it on GW, I want my friends to know about this. But I honestly think that there's a bigger sense of community that's going to come up this year, which I'm really looking forward to. A lot of people are leaving, a lot of people are staying in DC, so I just hope to make the best of it for my last semester. So yeah.
What's on your 2026 bingo card?
When J. Cole drops his album, it'll be one of the most iconic things that have ever been produced by a hip-hop artist.
I think Kim Kardashian's going to date a Trump.
I think AI is going to take over.
In the news, I feel like a lot of crazy things will happen. And personally, if you take a look at what's going on right now, it's really disheartening. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic about it. So hopefully things will get better, but most likely not.
I think Texas might flip more purple.
I think that a lot of people are going to be wearing lace this year and layering lace.
In the new year, I think I might get a job, hopefully.
Travis and Travis Kelce are getting married, and I also want her to have a child. And then Trump's going to take over Greenland, unfortunately. And then, I don't know, I think that's all I got for now.
Well, GW students had a lot of predictions for the new year. We'll see which ones come true. Reporting from Kogan Plaza, we are Capital Crossfire.
Last week, a journalist was offered a job by ICE as a deportation officer after a brief interview, missing paperwork, and even failing a drug test. Is ICE doing enough to properly vet its officers? We'll start with Ryan on the right and move our way down.
Is ICE doing? Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sorry, Is ICE doing enough to properly vet its officers? That's our main question.
Well, I would assume so, and especially these days when, it's an unfortunate fact that the Biden administration let in however many millions of illegal immigrants into the country. So the demand for ICE officers is heavily needed, and I trust that our government is doing and taking the necessary steps to vet their officers properly before releasing them into the field.
Yeah, I fully agree with Ryan. I do believe the government, current government right now, is doing what they can to make sure the ICE officers are properly trained and properly vetted. Of course, as Ryan said, if there's a large demand, we're hiring a lot of ICE officers, and we're doing our best to make sure every single one of them are properly trained and properly vetted. I do think they're doing generally a good job on that.
Well, I'd love to say that they're properly vetted, but to be honest, I don't really know exactly the vetting process of becoming an ICE agent. I do know that you can pretty much just apply randomly online. They're always posting Instagram ads and all about it. But I also don't really know who ICE officers are, and that's because it's policy that they're always covering their faces, like they're almost in like some sort of gang or something, covering their faces. So I'd love to know more about them, but overall I don't really know too much about the ICE vetting process. And there's certainly some scenarios that I'm sure we may end up talking about, that concern me, certain incidents that concern me about ICE's behavior.
Sorry, where's this policy that says they have to keep their faces covered?
Well, I don't think they have to, but a large
policy.
portion of them do. I don't know if there's a policy that says they have to, but a large portion
Well,
of
and
them
they do because unfortunately there are radical people and illegals and gangs who are putting bounties out on them just for doing their job. So that is why they have to cover their faces
in my view, no other law enforcement officers have to do so. You ask a police officer for their name, their badge number, they give it to you. And they're never covering their faces.
And ICE does the same, but the reason they have to cover their faces, again, is because they have deadly gangs that are putting actual bounties on them of $50,000+ Like, I would also cover my face if there was a radical gang trying to kill me. Would you do the same?
What you're setting up is a very clear answer. Of course, you're setting up
Exactly.
a situation of violence.
That's the point.
A radical gang. I don't know. Frankly, I have no idea what you're talking about there. I believe you when you say that there are bounties being put out, and I think that that's again a fringe minority. I have no doubt that the majority of Americans don't want to kill people.
Fringe minority. Even though that ICE officers are targeted daily in all 50 states, especially in Minnesota.
Can you cite a source there? Can you? If
I may,
just look open your eyes and look around. I'm sorry, do you not see what's happening in Minnesota right now? There are ICE officers actively. Look at what happened with Renee Good. She tried to run over an ICE officer, and look what happened.
Okay, hang on.
We've got time for one rebuttal from the left, but then we do have to keep moving.
Yeah, no, listen, I think I figured this was going to come up. We can discuss this all day, and I don't think we'll actually come to any conclusion there. But when it comes to peaceful protests, I do believe that, this is something that was said by the government. The vast majority of the protests are peaceful. And I think this is the case for both on the left and the right. There are fringe minorities.
And yes, I'm sorry, for the sake of time, we do have to move on. Last week, reporters obtained an ICE internal memo stating that immigration officers can forcibly enter people's homes without a signed warrant from a judge, prompting Fourth Amendment concerns from immigration advocates. Instead, the memo states that officers only need an administrative warrant to enter a residence. Do you think this practice is legitimate? We'll start with the left.
No. I think that even asking this question in the first place shows how much the Overton window has shifted when it comes to talking about these things. When we talk about the Constitution, and we can throw around that word all the time, and it'll act as if it's it's an authority. But when it comes to the law, you can't do that. It's that simple. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, though.
Sorry, so you're saying that the Constitution's not an authority?
I'm saying it is, but I'm saying that when. The Constitution is an authority, and what's happening right now
Well, you just said you can't use the Constitution as an authority, even though that's what all of our laws are based off of.
Well, according to the Trump administration, I would argue otherwise.
Sorry, according to the Trump administration, that the Constitution is the rule of law.
Gypsum, Jared, would you like an opportunity to jump in?
So I'll go back to the question at hand, which was about, the Fourth Amendment, sorry. So I do think this is very, very troubling. I've seen the memo, I've read it. It seems very troubling to our constitutional protections. I think personally, as our constitutional rights need to be protected to an absolute maximum. And I think what this is doing is this is backtracking on it, and it's saying that the possibility of deporting a few people, some of whom might be bad, some of whom might not be bad people, is more important than our constitutional protections that we fought for in the Revolutionary War. I don't believe that we should be able to suspend the Fourth Amendment for the purpose of a possible drug raid that hasn't been proven or anything like that. I think that we need to make sure that the Fourth Amendment is enshrined and not make sure that the Trump administration doesn't get its way in having these no-knock search warrants, without search warrant, no search warrants, just being able to search houses. I want to make sure that the Trump administration doesn't get their way in doing that.
I want to make it first clear that I'm not a legal expert, but if you just look at the situation, right, these illegals have been indicted in immigration courts and are being ordered to return to where they came from, the country of their origin. When you have liberal activist judges in many of these more liberal states, Minnesota, for example, who are actively trying to shield these illegals from being arrested and deported, you cannot trust the justice system in these by these liberal justices. Now, you cannot have these people impeding on justice, and if the federal government have to do what it can, at least from a purely non-legal way, I do think it is reasonable to say if we want to actually carry out the law, we must not let these activist judges impede in this way.
So to be clear, these activist judges that you're referring to, these are actual judges who are actually interpreting actual law. It's just merely inconvenient for the Trump administration that they can't, snap their fingers and, capture a 5-year-old kid and, just kind of throw him in whatever country they want to.
So that 5-year-old kid was actually abandoned by his father, who's an illegal immigrant, and I think the vice president made this very clear the other day. ICE did not capture or arrest him as the Democrats like to push out. No, they saved this child who was abandoned by his father in the frigid cold of winter. I don't see that as a bad thing. Should the kid have been, would you like ICE to have left the kid in the snow?
Hang on. That question in of itself is setting up something that I don't think is very productive. I mean, listen, from what I understand, I want to hear what you actually think, because I think this is important, because it seems that at least our facts are different. As far as I understand, and I haven't read a ton, but what I know is that there was some reporting that this 5-year-old was taken from his school, and bait is the word that was used, but effectively he was led to his front door and was there, and then his dad saw him, they opened the door, and they snatched them both. And now they're in Texas.
And where did you read this?
I don't recall.
If I may, to respond to your earlier statement about these justices that are carrying out the law, I believe one of the justices, last year, was literally, indicted for not carrying the law, impeding the law by shooting illegal migrants from the ICE and law enforcement. So if you can say these activist justices are carrying out the law, I frankly say a lot of them, or at least one of them, is actively impeding the law, actually doing illegal things. So are they?
They are, and you say that it's a violation of the Fourth Amendment, which I conveniently have a Constitution right here, and it says under the Fourth Amendment that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, and papers and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Well, I think trying to find criminal, illegal, alien, rapists, pedophiles, murderers, I think that's reasonable to be looking for.
Well, yeah. First of all, I can always appreciate a good pocket Constitution. Second of all, over time, what we have interpreted as reasonable searches is either A, getting a search warrant from a judge, not a liberal, or an actual judge, not these liberal judges that you're talking about, of course, or using the concept of probable cause, which is basically, you see someone did do something illegal, 99% that they did this thing. So that's what over time, just to be clear, the concept of searching homes reasonably has come to. And I think that this memo sets up kind of basically bypassing this whole system that has become over the last 200 years of our country.
Yeah, I'd echo that sentiment. It's about the precedent. I mean, in this case, yes, I would hope. I would hope that I can trust my government. But when it comes to setting the precedent of effectively breaking down the protections that protect us, that concerns me. That concerns me a lot.
We do have time if the right would like to rebuttal.
Yeah, I don't see how Trump is removing people's rights and protections. If anything, he's actually putting actual American citizens first and protecting them and their rights from these people who entered the country illegally under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and who are now sitting in Tim Walz's state, who he's actively letting them, and he's giving them money. Look at the fraud. Look at the amount of fraud. Is fraud good? No.
Are you talking about that school that was shut down? Is that what you're referring to in that whole thing?
I'm sorry. So, hold on. Answer my question. Do you think fraud is good?
Why are
I
you
mean, come
doing
on,
this?
what kind of question
You're,
is that?
I mean,
Answer the question. Answer the question.
What you're doing is you're
It's
pigeonholing
a
me
simple
into a
no.
box.
You can't even answer the
I
question.
can.
That's an argumentative
No.
question.
But what
Okay,
you're
let's
doing,
have a.
There you go.
Let's just keep this civil in here before we get too heated.
So you have a state governor who's actively defending, and the mayor of a city who are actively defending these illegal criminal aliens. And
yes, I'm sorry. Just for the sake of time, we have to move on.
fair enough. I think I made my point.
During a press conference on Thursday, Vice President J.D. Vance appeared to backtrack on a statement that he had previously made that ICE agents were, quote, protected by absolute immunity after meeting with officers in Minneapolis, where they have been the subject of controversy over their use of force and the death of Renee Colgood. In your opinion, how much immunity does and should ICE have? And we'll start with the Right with Ryan.
ICE has the same level of legal rights and protections as every other law enforcement agent and American citizen. Again, I said this earlier. What happened to Renee Good was terrible. It's horrific. There are 3 kids who have lost their mother. But the fact of the matter is simple. There's clear evidence that she attempted to run over this ICE agent with her car. And you can even hear her wife in the video saying, "Go, baby, go," to drive him over. And I'm sorry, I know you said, "Oh, where's the evidence of this?" Literally, Google it. Watch the video. You can literally hear the ICE agent getting hit by the car. And last I checked, if you were getting a car driven at you at full speed, would you want to defend yourself? Since you don't seem to want to answer my questions, I'll answer it for you. The answer is yes. I would, at least I would. Unless maybe you want to get hit by a car by someone, but that's not me personally. But my point being is the ICE agent who unfortunately had to kill Renee Good was completely in the right with that. And you can't say that he wasn't hit by the car because he's in the hospital with internal bleeding. So
He is?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Jared Gibson, if you'd like to.
I mean, to tie it back to, I guess, the question a little bit regarding the absolute immunity. Federal law enforcement have absolute immunity over state law enforcement. In context of ICE agents, you cannot have activist DAs, like liberal Democratic DAs, who go after these ICE agents. In the case of shooting Renee Good, the ICE and the federal law enforcement are doing internal investigations to making sure that this will make sure the ICE agent will not be judged in the court of public opinion, but actually the court of law, as Vice President J.D. Vance has said. So regarding a backtrack on it, perhaps Vice President J.D. Vance had made it very clear that that's what he meant, but federal law enforcement does have absolute immunity over state law enforcement, and that has been the case not just for ICE, but the case for the FBI and et cetera. So it's not exactly, in my opinion, a very controversial thing to say.
So to be clear, federal law enforcement does not have absolute immunity over the law. To be clear, now many people on the left, I think, will say that law enforcement and American citizens should have the same amount of immunity, which is basically nothing. I would disagree with that concept because I do think it's very important for law enforcement to have this heightened standard in order to best be able to carry out their duties. That said, that does not mean that law enforcement should be able to do whatever they want. Derek Chauvin, for example, he was went after because what he did was absolutely terrible, among the worst things I've ever seen a police officer do. And what's happening here, while it's only been 2 weeks or so, I don't know, I'm losing track of time, since this occurred, it's still important that we are able to investigate this properly, see if prosecutors can make a case for it, or maybe even get this to civil court if need be. I don't think it's productive at all for the Trump administration and the Bondi DOJ to completely shut down any possible investigation and basically say okay, case shut, done. He was ran over.
I'm sorry, when did they, sorry to interrupt you, but where and when did they say that, oh, this is a closed case, shut it down, no one investigated?
40 minutes after, literally 40 minutes after this thing occurred. We only had one angle of this and knew nothing about anyone yet. I think it was Kristi Noem who said that she's a domestic terrorist, and you had Donald Trump saying that he was violently rammed over and
dragged
he's
down
lucky
the street
to be alive. He described it as the worst car. You'd think that he was hit 100 miles per hour by a pickup truck based on the way that Donald Trump described it.
Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a pickup
the
truck
SUV is
or
a pretty
how it
big
happened.
vehicle
Like,
as well.
It was going 5 miles an hour.
Well, she
By
was
his point.
accelerating.
Okay, that's fine.
The point that he
Just for the sake of time, I'm sorry we have to move on. So, but thank you all so much for your lively discussion. Now let's turn to Crossfire correspondent Brady Wilson on the renaming of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center. We'll be back in just a moment.
For more than 50 years, this building has stood as the nation's living memorial to President John F. Kennedy, a symbol of culture and American ideals. Now its new name is at the center of a fierce fight over politics, legacy, and American arts. I'm Brady Wilson with GW's Capitol Crossfire, reporting from outside the newly renamed Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts here in Washington, D.C. In December, the center's Board of Trustees, now dominated by allies of President Donald Trump, voted to rename the institution the Donald J. Trump and John F. Kennedy Memorial Center for the Performing Arts. A day, Trump's name was added to the building's exterior, and the website was updated, even as legal experts questioned whether the board had the authority to change a name that Congress originally set by law in 1964. Supporters of the change argue that Trump secured major new federal funding, oversaw renovations to the building, and pushed for what his team calls a golden age of arts and culture. The White House and Trump-appointed leadership point to what they describe as record donations, new programming direction, and a promise to move the center away from what they label woke politics. The reaction was immediate and emotional, especially from the Kennedy family and many in the arts community. Family members compared changing the name to renaming the Lincoln Memorial and stressed that the center was created as a permanent memorial of Kennedy, not as a branding opportunity for whoever holds power. Legal scholars say there is no way the board can permanently change the name without an act of Congress, though they also note it might be hard to find someone with standing to challenge it in court. On Capitol Hill, some lawmakers are already exploring ways to reverse the move, turning this monument behind me into the latest frontline in a much larger constitutional and cultural fight. The renaming of the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center has triggered significant cultural and economic ripples across Washington's art scene. High-profile cancellations have gutted the center's programming. Hamilton producers canceled their March to April 2026 run, citing a complete erosion of trust in the venue's leadership and fears of interference with contracts, while the Washington National Opera ended its 55-year residency due to renaming. Protests rallied outside and signs reading "Trump is no JFK," while ticket sales have dropped amid staff changes, including 40 firings. For supporters, adding Trump's name here is a victory lap, cementing his imprint on one of Washington's most iconic stages. For opponents, it's a vivid example of how cultural spaces can become political battlegrounds, raising a question whether the National Memorial is safe from being rewritten by the next administration. Standing outside the Trump Kennedy Center of the banks of the Potomac, this is Brady Wilson with GW's Capitol Crossfire.
Welcome back. This week marked the anniversary of Trump's second swearing-in. What do you think was the most defining story of Trump 2.0 in the first year? We'll start with Jonah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that the strategy of flooding the zone, as enumerated by many Trump administration officials, has been shown clearly. There's like several hundred things that we could all talk about, and that's I think that's a very intentional strategy, as I believe Steve Bannon has said very clearly before. But in terms of what I think is the most important, is I think in response, his response of calling the several lawmakers who, again, reminded American service members to follow the law as sedition and treason and punishable by death. I think that shows one of the most concerning things that we've seen so far in this presidency, that being a lack of, one, understanding of the existing law, but also a recklessness of someone who has control of the U.S. military. For a law that is so important to protect us. That's what I think is the most concerning part. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think about that, but we'll get there eventually.
So the question is the number one story.
Yes, what do you think is the most impactful of the first year?
So I think the biggest story to take away from Trump's first year is that he is trying his very best to control the narrative and trying to change what people think. He doesn't want people to think outside of what he wants you to think. Because when people talk about Jeffrey Epstein, he says, oh, this isn't important, this isn't on the table. When people talk about, international law, oh, this isn't important, this doesn't matter, he talks about, oh, what about Joe Biden? I think that's the number one takeaway from this first year in office, that he doesn't really want to know he doesn't really care what you think. He cares what he thinks, and he cares what looks best for him.
Oh, do you want to go first?
No, you go first. You go first.
Thank you.
I'll let you go first.
No, but totally biased out here. I'm a foreign policy major, so definitely my lens into looking to Trump's first administration, second term will definitely through a foreign policy lens. But I have to say, what he has done for NATO, getting our European allies to commit to spending up to 5% of their GDP on defense is frankly fantastic. No other presidents, ever since the end of the Cold War, has even do that. He hasn't even done that. You might argue some of his tactics are unconventional. I might argue sometimes you might need a stern father sometimes. And as Mr. Yo said, Daddy Trump, right? No, but like what I really meant is, look at his foreign policy. We're wildly successful in Venezuela. No loss of American lives. Definitely some communist Cubans. So who cares about these communists? Look at what we've done in Iran. We effectively ended their Iranians' nuclear bomb desire. And look in the Middle East, we're solving the whole Gaza issue. And I believe a couple of days ago, the first border of peace are being formed. So, frankly, good job on Trump on that. So definitely foreign policy, I think, has been Trump's most impactful and most successful first year, definitely. At least that's how I view it.
America first, that's been it's what he ran on. It's what he's doing. It's promises made, promises kept. I think that the president has been very clear in his stance that he's putting Americans first with this new term, and I'm all for it. I don't want to elect a leader who's not going to put me first. That's why we're electing them. So I think that what President Trump has done with the America First campaign, with restoring faith and security and public trust, it's crucial.
We've got time for a rebuttal. We can move.
I mean, I don't want to call it a rebuttal because this isn't really a debate. At least I hope not. What I really want to ask you, Ryan, if you don't mind, what promises have been made and what promises have been kept? And I'm not trying to. It's not a gotcha. I just want to know what you think, so I can better respond to any claims that you do make.
Solving the border crisis, for starters. Gas prices have gone down. He's fixing the cost of living thing. Sorry, did you have something to add?
Hang on. Let him finish. Let him finish.
I apologize.
Please. Gas has gone down. Mm-hmm. Again, that's just a fact. Our cities are more secure, or at least getting there. I, for one, feel safer here now in Washington, D.C. after the National Guard has been here, and there have been sweeping security enhancements across the city and in other cities. And again, immigration, I mean, yes, what's happening right now in Minnesota is terrible, but it's not like he's like Biden, who would just sit and let the world burn. So I think. Sorry, no, continue.
No, I wasn't sure if you're done with your.
No, I want to hear what you have to say.
I apologize. No, I mean, I guess I just wanted to ask because you said like America first. Like, what does that mean to you? What do you think that means to the president, and what does that mean to you?
I think it means the same thing to the president as it means to me, and that is putting American citizens first.
In what regard? In terms of policy, what does that mean?
Well, for starters, the Biden administration was doing probably anything but supporting American citizens. It's getting costs of living. It's getting costs of living down.
How?
What do you mean? Well, I'm not an economist.
Well, you're saying he's doing a great job. Tell me how.
Well, he's gone gas prices down, like I just said.
That doesn't have anything to do with the cost of living.
I will say he has hardly gotten gas prices down. It's not that much less expensive than it was a year ago.
Energy prices across the nation have gone up at least 10%, and I mean, call that a fact. I don't know. Look it up. Fact check me. I don't care.
On average, people are saving.
Sorry, just for the sake of time, we do have to move on to our next question. On Thursday, it was announced that the U.S. had formally withdrawn from the World Health Organization. President Trump claimed this decision was made based on the WHO's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, but experts are concerned about the impact of the U.S. withdrawing from critical decision-making around the global health issues, like the flu vaccine. Was withdrawing from the WHO the right move, and what might be the consequences of it? We'll start on the left with you, Jonah.
I would say probably not. I did find out about this yesterday. I mean, generally, I believe that public health is a very important thing for everyone. It keeps people safer. And I know I don't want to talk about vaccine efficacy. I hope we're all on the same page there, but I understand if we're not. But I think that when it comes to international cooperation, I think that's always a great thing. I think that, when you guys talk about NATO and cooperating with our allies, I think the same thing could be applied here on a more global scale. Generally, keeping people safer and having people live longer and healthier is a great thing. And so for this, it's
it's more annoying than anything else because I think that at the end of the day, it's about, America first being more isolationist. I don't think that that's a very, I think it's more short-sighted, if anything else.
So, to be clear, I'm sorry, can you repeat I think I lost the question.
Specifically, this was about the impact of withdrawing from the WHO.
Right.
What do you think of that?
So I think that I agree with Jonah, definitely that the international cooperation is always good, more or less, at least. And I think that part of withdrawing from the World Health Organization is due to he wants to blame someone else for COVID when clearly in the 2020 election, the American people blamed him for COVID. But it's also due to the fact, of course, that he appointed someone who doesn't believe in vaccines. This goes against what science says. And basically he's saying that the concept of recognized health is not in his interest, is not what he wants. He wants to change the concept of health. He wants to defy science, and that's kind of why I think he went about this, to try and make this point that, we know better than the rest of the world. I don't think people are buying this, that vaccines are dangerous and that it was important to pull out the WHO because of it. I don't think people are buying it.
I mean, look at WHO. It is a tool used by the Chinese Communist Party to advance their global aims. Look at COVID. There are experts back in 2020 that have said, why is the WHO defending China? Why is the WHO refusing to call Taiwan, or even a country? It's a tool by the Chinese communists, and if the aim of WHO is truly to advance global health, they would have put China in far greater accountability than they've had. My grandmother, I was born in Wuhan. My grandmother's from Wuhan. She died from COVID. Why? Because the Chinese Communist Party refuses to give the world data, and the WHO has been facilitating China's terrible action of concealing concealing information. And this is not a controversial take. You look at experts, what they've said at WHO. It's very suspicious. In the last 6 years they've been operating. I believe how America is the world leader in health, and WHO, and I believe we can continue to be a world leader on health. But the fact of the situation is the WHO is not clean. The WHO is corrupt. The WHO has been corrupted by the Chinese communists. It is not a global organization that should be trusted. It's certainly not a global organization that will work to advance American foreign policy interests or American interests in general. So do I support leaving WHO? Absolutely. Why? Because this organization could be better. And in the last 6 years, this organization has, as we've seen since COVID, has not been better. So leave the WHO. It's a terrible organization.
Yeah, I think Gibson summarized it perfectly. Like the WHO, the reason that America joins and affiliates with international organizations is to advance our interests. And the sad reality is that a lot of these international organizations now, at least some of them, no longer share the same interests as us. And yes, America is a leading voice in healthcare amongst other, not healthcare, but like in the medical field than other countries. So like Gibson was saying as well, China has a large control over the WHO. So why should we be part of that? Why should we take what the WHO says as rule of law?
And can we really trust the WHO?
And you can't say as well that Trump's not putting an emphasis on health and healthcare. If anything, like I sat with Secretary Kennedy here on this campus a few months ago, and ever since then, even before then, the Trump administration has put a big emphasis on the work that Secretary Kennedy is doing with his department, HHS, and he's been doing a great job, in my opinion. I love Secretary Kennedy. He's been doing a great job. I was very grateful to have the opportunity to sit and talk to him. I know a lot of students here who came and asked their questions. We're also grateful for that opportunity. And I think that discussions around that are positive, and I think that we've had a lot of that, and I think that it's good that Trump has put emphasis on that.
Right, so I will admit I have not had the chance to sit down with Secretary Kennedy, but what I have seen based on things he's been saying day by day, for example, trying to get rid of all these vaccines that we currently give to young children, trying to slash out, trying to rewrite the food pyramid into something that's not really even pyramid looking.
He just flipped it, but okay.
Is going against the general interests of the American public and is going against what vaccine science has told us and is continuing to tell us for years and years and is continuing to tell us.
Okay. I'm sorry, we do have to wrap things up, but we do like to have fun at Capitol Crossfire, so we'll end with a fun one. Earlier in the episode, we asked GW students what's on their bingo card for 2026. So our final question to you is, in one sentence or less, what is on your 2026 bingo card? We'll start with Ryan and move down the line.
Oh, what's on my bingo card? Well, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm hoping
What's your
that
favorite movie? Quick.
Episode 3, I have to say. I'm a
good
big
one.
prequel guy. Clone Wars, great show. On my bingo card, I think we see the, especially now that Kathleen Kennedy's gone, I think we'll see the return of good Star Wars content. And hopefully more Star Wars games, too. So.
I second that.
Yeah.
Gibson?
Never really thought of this, but if we're gonna go through a not as fun as say a Star Wars reference, on my bingo card, a free Cuba.
Yeah, that's pretty different than what I said, but that was still good.
The question was
I
up to
still
interpretation.
agree.
Let's,
A wide variety.
So I'll keep it off politics and say that something I'm looking forward to, I guess, in the range of entertainment is I'm hoping the long-awaited game GTA 6 could finally be released.
You know, can I change my answer to that? GTA 6, can we agree on that?
I mean, at this rate, I mean, that's never going to happen. I mean, I definitely second the Star Wars content thing. I mean, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but what is on my 2026 bingo card? I mean, oh God. In terms, you know, let's go global. I think that, I'm not sure. You know what? Going off of the Star Wars thing, I remain optimistic about Marvel. They've gotten a lot of hype. Like I don't even know what the name of the movie is anymore. I used to be a big Marvel fan. Doomsday. Yeah. Well, they changed it a couple times, but I am optimistic that will be a successful film.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for our lovely panelists for joining us and for a wonderful conversation, and we hope to see you back here soon. Now let's get back to our hosts for a fact check.
Ryan and Gibson claim that Nicolas Maduro led a drug cartel. This is false. His indictment charges him based on his connections to Cartel de los Soles. Former narcotics enforcement officials and Latin American crime experts say Cartel de los Soles is a figure of speech used by Venezuelans to describe military officials corrupted by drug money. The 2020 indictment characterizes Cartel de los Soles as a patronage system and claims Maduro participates in, perpetuates, and protects a culture of corruption.
Ryan said that Chuck Schumer legalized drone strikes against narco-terrorists. This is false. While Chuck Schumer did support the 1986 Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act, according to the lead stories, the MDLA is a domestic law that allows the United States to engage in law enforcement operations against vessels suspected of drug trafficking outside the territory of the United States.
Jared said ICE has a policy for their agents to wear masks. This is false. ICE has no documented policy requiring masks. DHS has said their agents wear masks to protect their identities.
Gibson said that the government had an indictment for undocumented migrants in response to ICE entering homes without warrants. This is misleading. While the indictment is a formal charge based on probable cause, it does not act as a warrant itself.
Ryan said the 5-year-old taken by ICE was abandoned by his father. That is false. According to ABC News, the 5-year-old's father was also taken by ICE.
Ryan also said that the ICE agent that shot Nicole Good was still in the hospital with internal bleeding. This is false. According to DHS, he was released later the day of the incident.
Well, that's all for this episode of Capitol Crossfire.
Be sure to check us out online at www.gw-tv.com and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at GW Capitol Crossfire.
For all of us at GWTV, I'm Mylinda.
And I'm Nicole.
Thanks for getting caught in the crossfire with us.
We'll see you back here next time. We are Capitol Crossfire.